Hi, everybody. I am Brian Clapp, Director of Content for WorkinSports.com, and this is Facebook Live. How is everybody tonight? Glad to have you guys showing up again. This is our fourth or fifth. I lose track sometimes. This is our fourth or fifth Facebook Live session. We will do this every Thursday from 7:30 until, 8:30. I kind of keep that end open-ended a little bit because I like, hey, Kevin, I like to be able to be available to answer your questions. And sometimes those questions go long and sometimes, we just go a little bit over, and that's just the way it goes. I love doing these sessions because I get a chance to interact with all of you, and we get to have a two-way dialogue, like Kevin here in the house from Atlanta, Georgia. Hope everyone's doing great this evening, Kevin. I'm doing great. I can't lie to you. I love doing these sessions, like I was saying, because it gives me a chance to interact with all of you. I want you to tell me in the comments where you're listening from, like Kevin just did. Keep that coming as we grow and more people come in. I try to have a topic every night so we can have a little bit of a discussion first about some actionable advice for you helping get yourself get going in the sports industry. Tonight, 7 tips to improve your job search. Right? Good subject, obviously, stuff that's very important to you. Like, how are you going to nail your job search? What are some tips? What are some techniques? So that's something we're going to spend some time talking about tonight. And then we will open it up to all of your questions. Last week, I think we had like 60 questions come through. So it was crazy. Keep them coming. Bring in the questions. I want to be able to help you the best that I can. This is all impromptu. Nobody tells me their questions in advance. This is just me off the top of my head trying to help you guys the best that I can. Hey, Damien from Durham checking in. Good to have you here. As you come into the group, if you're a new listener or if you're just in for the first time, definitely say where you're from and where you're listening from, because I want to get to be familiar with all of you. A lot of people have been here for all of our live sessions, and it's nice for me to get to know what they're interested in, what career they want to have, what questions they have, and I can start to learn a little bit more about all of you as well, which is pretty cool. It's a fun part of this engagement. Like I've said before on the podcast, because if you don't know, if you're not familiar with some of my other work, I'm the host of the Workin' Sports podcast. Hey, Clarissa. Watching from Orange City, Iowa. Yeehaw. So if you're a fan of the Workin' Sports podcast, I like the thing about the podcast is that that's a one-way street. I interview somebody or I answer a fan question, and then you guys listen to me. This is a chance for us to interact a little bit more. We have a Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group. And if you're in that, awesome. If not, that's a good way for us to interact as well. But there's something about this forum. There's something about this ability to be able to talk with all of you. Hey, Becky, Orange County. It is great to be able to talk with all of you and have this kind of an interaction. So please continue coming. I am the director of content for WorkinSports.com. I've been there for about 5 years now. Prior to that, I was the news director at Fox Sports Northwest in Seattle. And then prior to that, I was a producer for CNN and Sports Illustrated in Atlanta, Georgia. So I've worked in the industry for a long time. I've managed large budgets. I've hired, I've fired, I've made executive decisions and been in some meetings with some pretty important people. And then taking it one step further, doing this podcast and doing a lot of the other work that I do, I interact with sports executives across the country. So I'll give a quick, for example, before we get into the subject. Last night, I had somebody message me on LinkedIn that had a question about them starting their career in inside sales. And they wanted to know if they should stick to the script or if they just got hired by LAFC from the MLS. They want to know in their inside sales job if they should stick to the script exactly or if they should start to intertwine their personality in it. And I thought to myself, I have never worked in inside sales, but Carl Manto, the senior director of group sales for the Milwaukee Bucks, who I interviewed on our podcast, he would know the answer to that question. And Christopher Flynn, who's the inside sales manager at the core for the Oakland A's, he would know the answer to that question. So I hit up both of them. They both gave me great answers, and I ferreted it back out to that person on LinkedIn asking me the question. So that's a lot of the benefit here, is that I might not have the answers to everything. I have answers to a lot, I think, but if I'm not, I can get the answers from the right people, or I know the answers from talking to the right people. So that's part of what makes, I think, this environment pretty cool. And all of our content is on WorkinSports.com. We're the #1 job board for the sports industry. My man Gary just showed up. Where you been? I've been worried about you. You're always here right at the beginning. We're 4 minutes in. Gary, come on. Where you been? I'm kidding, Gary, by the way. Don't take me to heart. We also, for those of you, Ryan, excellent, from Boston, my hometown Patriots. Thank you very much. Although I'm a little bit worried about this weekend. We also have a really cool deal for anybody who's a student and has a .edu email address. A lot of times people say to us, well, why do you charge for your site? Well, it's a simple business principle. We can either, and just think of this from a business standpoint, a job board can either bring in money by charging employers, or they can have a fee system like we do. Now, here's the benefit of each. With ours, we don't have to be dependent on only promoting jobs from those people willing to pay us. So think about that for a second. We can go out and find 10,000 sports jobs and bring them to you. Other sites only publish the jobs of people willing to pay them. Hey, Jennifer. Gary was getting organized. I see you, Gary. That's why. Jennifer and Marilyn, good to see you as well. So the benefit and the reason we built our site this way is because we think we can bring more jobs to you. We think we can bring more opportunity to you and not just be restricted to only those employers willing to pay us a fee. So that's the way we do it, And what that allows for is for us to do cool discounts like we're doing with this workinsports.com/students. If you have a .edu address, you can go to our website. You can go to the site I'm giving you there and you get 87% discount. So for 6 months, full access, $30. I mean, crazy discount. So that's enough of that stuff. I'm Brian. And let's talk about tonight's subject, which is 7 tips to improve your job search. Everybody is, come on, we're working in the sports industry. We want to get a job in the sports industry, and you're out there looking all the time. So how do you really master this technique? What's the process? Hey, Gregory. And hey, Dylan. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. So the first thing I want to talk about, so think of this as like a process. And I know a lot of you are probably actively in your job search right now, or you might just be getting started, or you might be graduating in the spring and you want to start to have this conversation. Hey, Sherry, you might want to start to have this conversation. I want to give you a few steps of what you should be doing really before you start throwing your resume out there. But if you've already sent your resume out there, that's okay too. Just take these tips and start to put them into work, or start to at least analyze yourself and say, all right, is there something I should be doing better first? I'll start off with some of the basics and then we'll work into some more advanced stuff. First thing, you need to go through and update all your social media profiles, because I tell you, as someone that's been in charge of hiring a lot over my years and also has worked with a lot of other people in charge of hiring, and interviewed a lot of people in charge of hiring, we go through your personal files. We go look at you on the internet. We go look at your social media profiles and see how you're represented out there. See what kind of buzz there is about you. See how you're interacting out there. That is part of your personality. So go, and I mean that from like if you've got pictures of you doing keg stands and stuff like that, maybe tone those down. But also, we're going to go to your LinkedIn profile and really look at that. So spend time making that look really professional and really strong. That's a really important pivot point. I say this too, because I'm a LinkedIn addict, as many of you know. I go research people that I interview on the podcast through what they've shared on LinkedIn. And I see some profiles that are incredible. They share great detail. And I really feel like I get a lot of knowledge out of them. And I see others that are Spartan and minimalist, and they don't have a picture, and they just make that look primo, because that is a big impression. Remember, we talk about this a lot, and I'll get into it a little bit more later, but your first impression. I just had Maylin Vu on the podcast. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, you really should. She is the assistant director of talent acquisition for the Cleveland Indians. And she talked about how resumes are two-dimensional, right? There's something that she is able to see and has to then interpret who you are from that piece of paper. Well, in order to make you more three-dimensional, she goes out to your social profiles and she looks at them all. She tries to get a more robust picture about you. So clean that stuff up. Okay, number 2. Now, this has happened to me more times than I'd like to admit, which might make you think I'm a simpleton. But you go on an interview. You nail the interview. You're doing great with everything. And then the person says, great, send me over your references. I want to do some fact checking on you. And my first thought is, yeah, sure, no problem. I've got plenty of references. And then I think to myself, you know what? I haven't talked to that person in a long time. I don't know if I have their right email. I don't know if they have their, hey, Megan. I don't know if I have their right email still. I don't know if I have, oh, well, you're a huge fan already of the podcast. Thank you, Megan. We'll keep listening. Check. Let me put that back up on the screen. See, I'm directing. I'm pulling up graphics. I got all this stuff going on. Microphone. So you are in this moment where you have to deliver on your references. You are near the finish line and you think to yourself, I haven't talked to this person in a while. I don't know if I still have the right email address. I don't know if they're at the same company anymore. oh crap, and you go into panic mode because this company is now expecting you to have your references within a short amount of time, or else it starts to look a little weird if you don't respond within 24 hours with your references. So what I tell everybody is, and nobody thinks of this, trust me, you've not thought of this, is that you need to get your references in order first. Like, go out there and connect with those people again and say, hey, I'm going to be looking for a job. I want to know if I could still use you as a reference. I want to make sure I have the same updated information for you, and have all that beforehand. That's going to take some of your anxiety away as you go through this process. Getting some of that stuff checked off is really important. Okay. Number 3, explore your weaknesses as part of a self-audit. All right. This is, I think, one of the most basic principles of starting your job search. You need to identify, here's the problem. Let me backtrack for a second. The problem I see so many people do is they say to themselves, I want to work in sports, and I want to work in community relations, or I want to work in sales. So every job they see that has sales in it, they just throw out their resume. Boom, 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 boom. So it's this kind of wild and crazy technique, and it's scattered and it's not really focused. And they don't really know much about the job because they haven't really spent much time really looking at it in depth. Well, what I suggest to everybody is take a more logical approach. And what you want to do is, probably a month before you start your job search, go pull up 5, 10, 15 jobs that may interest you, and do a bit of a self-audit. See exactly what those jobs want and need for their requirements. See what skills you have and what you don't have, and see how you fit for what the marketplace demands. If you don't have those skills, then you have to get them in order to be attractive. And that's sometimes a humbling experience to say, oh my gosh, I want to work in sales, but they all require these 8 things. I don't have any of them. Well, you got to get back out there and you got to figure it out. Or if they want marketing experience, or they want whatever it is for the different jobs out there, you need to know that before you really start your job search. So do a bit of a self-audit, know where your weaknesses are, and at least start to form a dialogue for how you can answer them. Because somebody's going to say to you something like, oh, well, I see that you don't have any Photoshop experience, or something along that lines. And you can say something like, I've just started taking a course in Photoshop. I'm learning more about it. It's a really cool program. I'm excited to really master it. Have an answer for your weaknesses. If you have a gap in your resume, have a story that you can tell, have an explanation you can give. Think about what your weaknesses are, because while I talked about last week on the Facebook Live that what a rookie, amateur hour. My phone just rang. Sorry. Amateur hour. Shut off your ringer. Or just throw your phone across your office. If you are on an interview, I told you last week, a lot of times the other person, that person interviewing, wants you to do well. They want you to win. In the same light, they are going to look for your weaknesses, and they're going to try to put you on the spot and try to get you to handle those and see how you handle that pressure. So be ready for that. Be prepared for that. Explore your weaknesses, do your self-audit, figure out where your gaps are, make a plan to fix them, but at the same time, just have an answer to those as well. Prime your network, number 4. Okay. Here's one of my biggest pet peeves. I go on LinkedIn. Hey, Glenn, the aspiring play-by-play man here, listening and learning. Well, good to have you, Glenn, always. We're on to Prime Your Network, number 4. I'm going to put the graphic back up. Prime Your Network. Okay, here's one of my biggest pet peeves. I see this all the time on LinkedIn and social channels. Someone will blast out on there everywhere, if anybody's looking for a experienced sales manager, I'm your guy, or they'll send out like, oh yeah, I'm a seasoned marketing executive looking for a role. That doesn't really do it. Nobody's going to look at that and feel motivated to help you. And actually, it kind of can look a little bit desperate. What I want you to do is be a little bit more strategic about it. Rather than blast out to everybody, look at your list of connections. Look at those people who could be associated with the jobs that you want or the future you want for yourself, and target individuals and start to have a dialogue with them and say, hey, I'm back out in the marketplace. I'm looking for some work. Don't ask for a job. Just ask and say, was wondering if you had any advice, or if there are any certain skills that you are really seeing demand nowadays. It would really help me to know exactly what the market needs right now, or something along that line, some sort of a dialogue. What you're doing by doing that is you're allowing them to know that you're in the marketplace without begging, without seeming desperate. You're allowing them to know that you're interested in looking. You're also showing them that you value their experience and their knowledge and their time. So you're not begging, you're not looking desperate. You're selecting certain people that you think can have an impact in your life and where you want to go, and starting a dialogue with them, like a professional conversation. When you do a blast everyone, it's impersonal. personal. You kind of put up this barrier between you and them. So try to take it a little bit different, go a different approach. Try to be more targeted and more strategic in the way you let people out there know that you're going to be looking. Number 5. Okay. Know who you are online. This relates to social media conversation earlier, but it's different. Google search. When you Google search my name, or at least this used to be the case, when I Google search my name, a steroid dealer from Texas used to come up all the time. And it was this guy who kind of looked like me a little bit, and exact same name, and had been busted a couple times and owned a website called steroids.com or roids.com or roidroom.com or something like that. And I needed to know that because 100% that just worked for me with someone a bit higher up in one of the NFL teams. Just asked me for any tip. Yep. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that worked for you, Greg. I needed to know that conversation was out there, or that information, that my name, when you search it, comes up with somebody else. The reason I needed to know that is because it actually came up on a couple of interviews. I was interviewing for a job and they said, like, so are you from Texas originally? And I knew what they were talking about. And I was like, no, and that's not. And because think about it, I'm a guy in the digital marketing world. I'm out there online. I have websites. I have all this sort of stuff. So it was like enough question that it could have been me. So they quizzed me about it and were like, are you from Texas originally? And so this conversation happened. So I learned after a while, knowing that I could almost make a joke out of it. And I'd say, by the way, if you do any searching on me, I'm not that guy that got busted for steroids.com. And a couple of times people actually laughed and they were like, oh, I was wondering if that was you. Yeah, Jake. Hey, Jake. Wait, you aren't a steroid dealer? But it's true. And trust me, do Google searches on your name, figure out who you are out there, because you don't want to be tripped up in the moment and be like, wait, these people think I'm somebody different than I am. Trust me, again, this happens. Not everybody's great at background searches. NFL teams aren't that great at background searches when they hire their coaches. So a lot of employers aren't that good at it. They might take a little sliver of information and think that it's something bigger than it is. Number 6. Get organized in your search. Now, I was talking earlier about how some people go about this and just throw out their resume to a ton of different jobs and just they're applying like mad, hoping magic happens. What I tell people all the time is build yourself a spreadsheet. Okay, keep organized. Know where you applied, what the title of the job was, put a couple notes in there, what date you applied, what site you applied on, workinsports.com, how you went about it. If you have any contacts there, have this all in a spreadsheet so you can stay organized, so that you can stay really consistent with what you're trying to achieve, because you're going to get a call at the most random time. And if you type these things down, if you have it in a spreadsheet and it's really organized there, Christopher Murphy, I wouldn't mind being confused with a U.S. Senator. Could play to my advantage. That's a good point. And also, one of my best friends growing up in high school, Christopher Murphy, lives in Connecticut. Wait, so does the Senator. Not the same guy. Okay, good. Becky, in agreement. Keep your Excel, keep it a spreadsheet, because when you type it out and when you have that information in there, it gets lodged in a different part of your brain. This is a proven fact. When you actually write things down or type them out, they go into a different retention part of your brain. And what's going to happen then is 2 things. You're going to be out around town sometime and somebody's going to call you and they're going to want to do like a phone interview or set up a phone interview. And you don't want to be like, wait, who is this person again? And what team did I apply for? And what was that job? If it's a little fresher in your mind, that's going to be a better experience for you and for them. It's going to give off that right first impression. So stay organized. Trust me, this is so important. And it's one of those things that just gets forgotten. Wait a second. Number 7, I made a mistake. I typed the same thing twice. This is what happens when you try to build your graphics at the same time you're trying to do other things. All right, I'm going to hide this one because what I meant to type was prepare for the negative. And what that means, and I could probably watch this. Prepare for the negative. Let's see if this works. I haven't tried this before. I forgot to give it a number, but you know it's number 7. Number 7, prepare for the negative. Okay, again, I've told you that the employers want you to do well when they're interviewing you, but at the same time, hey, Corey, at the same time, had a team call me and pulled up my Excel sheet so I could answer questions and know what the job was. Exactly right, Corey. Good. You're ahead of the curve. Nice job. Prepare for the negative. Study your weaknesses like I talked about earlier, because they are going to jump on you for them. All right. So this goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier about getting about preparing for your doing your self audit and preparing your weaknesses. The more you are comfortable with who you are and where your gaps are, the more you can start to build your story and you can start to have a positive experience in your job search. Again, if you're new listening in here, please do throw out there who you are, where you're listening from. I want to have as much interaction as we can. And we will publish this replay on our Facebook site, on our YouTube channel, on our blog. So this will go back out there. If you didn't get any of those pieces of information, again, you can go back and circle back to those. I am, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Clapp. I'm the director of content for workinsports.com. I host the Work in Sports podcast. I do all kinds of stuff. So I'm a busy guy. But now, as always, I'm trying this week. Okay, this is a new thing. I'm trying this week to give us more time for questions, because I originally started this concept with like, okay, I'll do about 15 minutes of a theme, of a topic, and we can dig into that. And then I'll do 15 minutes of questions and answer all of your questions. And what's happened pretty much every time is I go about a half an hour on the theme and then go for another half an hour on the questions. So I'd rather open it up for more questions. They can be about the subject we just talked about, which is great. We can do that for sure. Or they can really be about anything. And I'm pretty good on my feet, so don't be afraid to just throw things at me as you get them. I know Gary said earlier that he, where's Gary? I see him in the I know Gary said in the comments that he was getting his notes together, so I'm sure that, see, I was here getting organized for my notes. So I'm sure that Gary's either taking some notes or has some questions that he wants to ask. So the floor is open to all of you. It is super important that you take the right steps to get organized before you really start your job search, or if you're in it right now and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, take that step back. Take a moment to get yourself organized, build your spreadsheet out, have that conversation with yourself about what do I need to be really ready and really confident. Because the more steps you take here, the more steps you take to get yourself comfortable in the process, the more comfortable you're going to be when that phone rings or when that email comes through. Or because I know in every job that I've had in the industry, okay, I got a phone call out of the blue. I got a question out of the blue. I was completely unprepared in certain ways. I got an interview out of the blue. I had to go down to Atlanta within a couple days. Like, things happen fast. Prepare yourself as much as you can so nothing is going to catch you off guard. I'm going to come back to that, Becky. I was trying to put up that Jamie from Fishers, Indiana is here. Hi, Jamie. Good to have you here. Christopher Murphy, senior in the midst of applying for work after graduation, watching from Durham, New Hampshire. That's right, University of New Hampshire. I spoke to your sports management club there, right, Chris? Christopher, do you prefer Christopher or are you a Chris? These are the questions I need to know the answers to. Okay, we're going to get on to Becky. Becky, thanks for the advice last week on my portfolio for the job application. Submitted all my information yesterday, so fingers crossed. Yeah, this is really cool. Becky can probably share a little bit more about this, but we talked last week about how she was applying for a job and she wanted to know how much extra stuff she should include. So they had and Becky, correct me if I'm remembering a little bit wrong, but essentially there were requirements that they wanted for the application process, but she had some extra materials as part of her PhD program and wanted to know if she could include some of that in her portfolio because she thought that really showed her off well. And we talked about that for a little bit last week. And I think that it was a really good idea to include a little bit more because, again, all the information that employers get off of you, like Maylin Vu put it in the podcast, is two-dimensional. And the more information you can get them to help build up that story about you without going overboard, you don't want to give them like a 80-page file, but without going overboard can really be helpful. They want to know your story. Okay, Clarissa, been wanting me to start a spreadsheet for some time, so doing that now. No time like the present. Good, really good. I trust me. I know that I'm like okay. So when I go running, I hate it. When I first am walking down my driveway, I hate the anticipation of doing it. When I get back into my driveway and I'm done with my 3 miles or whatever it is, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that, right? It's the same thing with things like spreadsheets and getting yourself organized or doing your finances or whatever it is. You hate the process. You don't like it when it first starts out. But when you're done, you're like, kind of feel better. So I hope that this is one of those moments where I can get you inspired to take action. You know, if anybody listened to my Monday podcast, so on Mondays I do a fan question or I do something topical. And then on Wednesdays I have the expert interviews. And on Monday, I kind of went on a bit of a rant about how I'm tired of just this crazy motivational talks that people give, or the quips or the memes or the quotes. Now, they're fine. They give you a momentary boost of energy, but unless you have a plan to support it, you're not going anywhere. So I hope that these moments and our conversations are not just a temporary motivation. They're actually actionable. There's something you can do afterwards and feel like you can make a difference. Gregory, I want to answer your question, but if you can make it a little bit smaller, because I'm going to do this again. I did this last week. This is what happens. Watch me. Boom, I'm gone. So if you could trim it down a little bit, because it's hard for me to read, because it's bad if I'm sitting here reading and not saying anything, because that's kind of boring. So we'll go to Kevin's question instead. Kevin, always good to have you. I bring numerous contacts, potential sponsors for racetracks. Should be a big positive for NASCAR tracks. Do you reveal those up front? I want to make sure I understand you correctly. So revealing them in another job, like if your some of your contacts and potential sponsors, you're saying you want to mention that you have connections like that for an interview. Give me some clarity there, and I want to answer that for you. Because I will tell you, if that's what you're saying, it depends on the job. A lot of jobs hire people based on their contacts, so on who they know, right? Salespeople, sponsorship sales. Like if you're going to get a job in sponsorship sales for a major team, let's say, they want to know in the hiring process, well, who do you know out there? Who have you done deals with? Oh, I did deals with P&G and Johnson & Johnson and whatever else. Budweiser, I got this guy that I know. That's really important for that. So if that's what you meant, okay, I see you're saying yes. I think have those things ready to talk about depending on the job. So like I said, if the job is one of those that is looking for you to know people and be connected and change like their business by bringing in who you know, then definitely be okay with name dropping. And to be honest with you, I name drop all the time because I've worked with some cool people, and that's kind of how it goes. Sherry, I was a middle school PE and AD for 14 years, master's in sports. Awesome. Master's in sports management. Have I waited too long to shift gears in the job search? Feel like I'm behind? No. Period. Okay. In all honesty. So Malin Vu, who is our most recent podcast, and I can list probably 5 others, whether they've said it to me in the podcast or off the record. A lot of people look to hire people that either don't have exact experience in the sports industry or did something completely different because they're trying to bring in new opinions, new approaches, new mind frames. Like Malin actually said, like she's hired people with the Indians who had backgrounds in biology. So it's not always this perfect straight line. It's not always this, like I went from, college to my job, to the next job, to the next job. And now I'm CEO, and nobody expects you to have that perfect straight line. It's always a broken line. And so to have the experience like you do in 14 years, master's in sports management, no, you haven't waited too long at all. I think you just need to make sure you refine that gap a little bit, because whatever it is that you want to be doing, figure out some of those skills that you need, add those to your portfolio and skill set, and then really lean into those skills you have as an AD in organization and leadership and teamwork. I mean, those are really great attributes, and administration. Those are really great attributes that can transfer to just about any job in the sports industry. Trust me, I actually, one of the president, he's I'm losing his name, which is so bad, but he's the president of the Atlanta team for the AAF, the new league that's starting, and Brad Childress just quit as coach. He's the president, and he was telling me, and this was not off the record, but off the camera, we were talking, and he said, he actually loves to hire people that don't have any sports experience because, again, they bring in a new perspective. I will also tell you, as a hiring manager, somebody that's hired before, and again, talking to a lot of people out there, there's usually one of two paths that I go down in hiring. Either I like to promote from within, because you're sending a message to everybody else in the organization that if they perform well, there's chance for advancement. I also like that because I already knew the person and I already knew what I thought they were capable of, and if they had that high ceiling. So that would work. The other 50% of the time, I was always looking in to bring fresh, different, new blood. And sometimes it depended on what time of the year I was hiring and what was kind of feeling like in our newsroom, or what the environment of the culture felt like at that time. Did we need new blood, or did everybody need a little bit of a pep to bring somebody up from within and give them that promotion? So a lot of those factors come into play. But what that means is nobody's really out of the realm of possibility. If you've got a good skill set and you've got a lot of those soft skills and you've got some background and some interesting experience, that goes a long way. That really matters. Gregory, sorry. Suggestion is getting experience for a sports job when you live in an area that lacks opportunities for experience and internships. This is a really good question. So I did a study 2 years ago, let's say. And I looked at all of our sports jobs for the year. So there was something like 28,000 sports jobs we had posted on workinsports.com. And I did a mapping of it, and I saw all the states where things were located. And it was, obviously very condensed to New York, LA, Chicago, but there was representation everywhere. A lot of the college jobs and things like that really spark up the South, and Atlanta had a lot of jobs. But it's true. A lot of the sports jobs tend to be in city hubs. They tend to be in those central areas where there's a density and they have a team. And think about it. That's where all those supporting products that go around a team are also located in the cities. So it definitely tends to be a city focused world and job. A lot of the jobs that are in other states that maybe don't have pro teams, a lot of times it's at it's a YMCA, it's a Special Olympics chapter, it's a fitness center. It's maybe not with a pro team. They're just not there. Minor league baseball, minor league basketball, those sort of things. But getting experience for sports job when you live in an area that lacks opportunities, you got to be open to relocation. I interviewed today Tiara Brown, who is the manager of social responsibility for the Charlotte Hornets. She'll be coming up in a podcast in a couple weeks. And she was talking about how she went down and she was living in an area much like you talk about. She was in an area that didn't have the opportunity she wanted. She moved to Charlotte for an internship. And I'm not saying that's available for everybody. I'm not saying that everybody can afford to do that. I get it. It's not easy. But you might have to relocate for some of these opportunities. And you might need to look towards the bigger cities. But if not, I say minor league sports are the way to go. Minor league baseball is a great platform to get experience. So if you have anything like that nearby, even within an hour's drive, try to make that your move. I think those are some really great experiences because remember, minor league baseball teams work in conjunction with a professional team. So there's a career path that could be there for one, but also there's a certain structure and an organizational expectation that they're going to have to live up to. It's not like a Arena Football League team. No offense to the Arena Football League, but there's a potential of them going under. They don't really have this great top-down business model. They're kind of a floating franchise on their own. They're kind of like duct tape and mud and whatever to hold them together. With a minor league baseball team, they're run with a different structure and an expectation from their parent team and some infrastructure that comes down from them as well, an expectation. So these businesses work really well. So that's something that you can consider. Kevin, to follow up on your question, sponsorship sales for a track. Okay, so I didn't even know exactly what your question was, but I said, hey, if it's a job like sponsorship sales, you want to bring your Rolodex with you, and not Rolodex, but your contacts. So I think we nailed that one. Jeff Barnes, sorry I'm late. Jeff, where you been? Just kidding. Gary, taking notes, right? Jake. I have an interview. I'm going to try to talk now in English. I have an interview tomorrow for a football recruiting internship and feel pretty good about it, but it's with a board of people rather than just one person. Any different tips for this type of interview? Yes. Panel interviews. Okay. Panel interviews can be tough, but we had a question last week about something similar. I think it was Kevin, actually, who might be listening tonight. But anyway, panel interviews. You need to do eye contact very differently, and eye contact becomes very important. And here's what you want to do. Panel interview, usually the way this works is, and I used to run these, so I know this is how we formatted it. Usually the way this works is let's say there's 5 people, let's say there's 10 people. They organize beforehand who's going to ask what questions and in what order. And they never make it straight down the line, like you're going to be like left to right, one after the other. They always make you jump around because they're trying to throw you off your game a little bit. They're trying to overwhelm you and see how you handle that pressure. Knowing that means you need to prepare for that. They want to see if they can make you crack a little bit under the pressure. That's the whole point of a panel interview, right? They want to see if you can handle it. So be ready for that. Be ready to handle it. Okay. Here's the other thing. You're going to get a question from this guy over here. And then you're going to get a question from this lady, right? So to this guy, you make eye contact with him. You start to answer his question. That's why I'm looking over here. I'm acting like I'm talking to this person. I'm not ignoring you. I'm looking over here. You act like you're talking to this person. You're giving your answer. And then once you're 15, 20 seconds into it, you start working down the room a little bit. You start making contact with other people. You start to make motions with your hands a little bit and start to explain what you're thinking. Making eye contact with each individual. When they ask their question, give them the initial attention. Give them 15 to 20 seconds solid of eye contact and your answer. But then break that and start to look at everybody else. When you're wrapping up your answer, come back to that person and say, and literally say, did that answer your question? And if not, they might have a follow-up and you'll continue going with it. And if it did, they're going to nod and say, yep, that was great, or whatever. So try to handle that with confidence, because their attitude in doing a panel interview is to try to make you uncomfortable and see if you can handle it. So don't be uncomfortable. You got nothing to be uncomfortable about. Seriously. Jake, you're talented. You've got experience. Just go in there and nail it. And tell us about it next week. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. Football recruiting internship. That's pretty cool. Gregory, I'm sort of in the same boat. I think it's never too late. Yeah, we're talking about career changing, I'm guessing. Internship, and I feel like Robert De Niro, the intern, all super young college kids. Gregory, it's very true. I get it. Look at my gray hair. Jennifer Atkinson, similar question. Yep. Okay. Christopher. Many of the jobs I find say they want 2 to 3 years of experience. I only have experience from internships. How do I use my internships as experience to apply for those jobs? Christopher, this is a really great question. Okay, so let's handle this from the employer's perspective and then your perspective. The employer's perspective. When they ask for 2 to 3 years of experience, that's their wish list. That's the thing that they hope to get. It doesn't mean it's a requirement or a mandate. The general rule of thumb is if you hit on between 60 and 80% of their requirements, I just hit my mic, requirements, try to do it a little differently, I'll go forward. If you hit on 60 to 80% of their requirements, then you should apply for it, because they don't expect you to have 100% of everything. They want you to have some things that they can train you and bring you in for. But if you do have internship experience, that is experience, okay? Leverage that. And I tell everybody all the time, when you're doing an internship, take notes on everything you do. This is again like the jogging analogy I gave a little while ago. You don't like the idea of doing it, you finish your internship and you want to go out and party or hang out with your friends or do whatever else, take some notes on what you've accomplished. You will thank yourself later, because you're going to have to cite these things in an interview, or you're going to have to build them up and bulk them up on your resume. What I also say, to fill in those gaps a little bit, because when you intern, it might be 4 months here, 2 months off, 4 months there. Fill in those gaps a little bit on your resume, especially by doing some volunteer events. Any of the annual yearly things, so road races, bike races, golf events, tennis events, those are annual events that come back to a location once a year. They don't usually have full-time staff, so they need volunteers. Look into community relations departments for professional teams. They look for volunteers to host some of their events. Again, they're not going to hire full-time staff to do their holiday Thanksgiving giveaway or their military care package day or whatever. So you can volunteer at some of those things. Builds up your resume, gets you more experience. I say if you've got the experience they're looking for outside of the 2 to 3 years of experience, if you've got some of the skills they're looking for, go for it. Go for it. See what happens. Be ready to tell your story in your cover letter and try to get that out there. I don't see any reason why not. Cole, my man with the Royals. Do you have a Royals t-shirt on too in your shirt there? No, I can't tell. I just accepted and began a new role just outside of the industry to gain experience on the brand side of marketing, event sponsorships. I suggest others to not necessarily only look for roles with towards a specific team or sport. I am stumbling over my words tonight. I agree 100%. So much of the sports world is simpatico with the business world. If you get experience in brand marketing, that is going to translate to the brand marketing that might happen with a professional team, right? So getting that experience. I am definitely a bit of a snob when it comes to the type of experience people have, just admitting it. I would look at resumes and I'd look for names I recognize, businesses I recognize, companies I recognize. If you did brand marketing for a large corporation, that's going to say something to me. You know, and if you worked at ESPN or whatever it was, that's going to say something to me. I looked for those kind of things because I want to know people had quality experiences, not just experience. That's me. But I'm saying if you have an opportunity to get really good, strong experience at a company outside of sports, that will not necessarily hurt you getting back in. Trust me on this. So many people I've interviewed will tell this all the time and say, look, we're looking for the right people. We're looking for the right people with the right experience. They don't necessarily have to have a sports management degree. They don't necessarily have to have put in 10 years with a professional team. If they have the right experience, we want them. Let's move along. Corey has an interview. Everybody's got interviews tomorrow. This is a big interview of the week. January, that's part of why I want to have this topic tonight of like the tips to improve your job search, because January is actually a really big time for hiring. A lot of companies have set their budget for the year. They know what to expect. They've kind of got a feeling of, especially baseball teams, they know they're in their off season getting ready for hiring for the next season. January is a good month for hiring. Okay, so let me actually read this. I have an job interview tomorrow for an inside sales rep for an MLS team. Congratulations, but with a board as well. Love to know if there are any different tips as well. I kind of just went through that, but it's a really good question and good for you. If you have further questions on inside sales, like I said, I have some really great connections that are, Chris Finn with the Oakland A's, who actually came into our live broadcast here one time and may actually be listening. He might be a voyeur. Is the sales manager for the Core, which is their entry-level business development program. And I mean, I hit him up with questions all the time. So if you have a specific question, I'd be happy to help you with that. And then also Carl Manto and Mike Judge with the Cleveland Browns, and Carl Manto's with the Milwaukee Bucks. And so I've got some contacts out there in inside sales who I'm sure I could get some specifics for you. But the panel interview, I think one of the most important things is that eye contact and keep moving through and try to keep your posture confident and your attitude confident, because that's what they're trying to sense out of you, how you can handle that. Clarissa, speaking of the AAF, any tips on how to get in with a new league? Since everyone is in the league is new, does that even out the playing field? Great question. Matter of fact, our friends at Prodigy Sports, Dan Rossetti the president of Prodigy Sports, was a guest on our podcast, and it's been one of our most popular episodes. Dan's awesome. Prodigy's handling all the recruiting for the AAF. So a guy like Dan is someone you want to connect with on LinkedIn and, see what kind of opportunities are out there. I think a lot of those new leagues do present a good opportunity, especially if they're well-funded and they've got a strong, there's like 5 new leagues launching, it seems like. But if they are well-funded and they have that kind of marquee name behind them, Justin Tuck and Jared Allen, a lot of these names behind it, and Bill Polian in the AAF, I think that they will last. And they have a contract, a broadcast deal already with CBS. So I think the AAF will do well, and I think they're forming real professional teams. So I think that's a good place to look for opportunity. Gregory, love this. Inspiring me to be highlight skills outside of the sports world that can be an advantage. Good. I'm really glad to hear that. Sherry, Malin Vu's interview was great, by the way. I'm telling you, okay, I kind of went on this rant earlier this week, like I was talking about how I have this just anger that comes out from like the idea of these temporary motivational moments. And I've always been about actionable advice. If you hear the answers I'm giving, I'm trying to give you like things you can do, like get to work and do this thing, build yourself a plan. Here's how to handle an interview, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to give you real advice. When I interview somebody like Malin and she just starts really dropping like truth bombs all over the place, I just get excited because I'm so used to interviewing athletes or interviewing executives, and they give you a lot of cliche, a lot of general, a lot of kind of boring. And then somebody like Malin is like, no, you know what really makes me mad is when people send in a resume that has spelling errors on it. And she just starts going off and giving people like, oh yeah, when you're on a phone interview, you got to make sure you do this and blah. And that is like the best possible information. So I was very excited about that, Sherry, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Gregory, I'm with the Southern Professional Hockey Team now. I sort of feel like it might help knowing you can do the dirty work in the low levels. Absolutely. That's what I was saying. Minor league sports, great. AHL, ECHL, minor league hockey, minor league baseball, great place to get going. Almost everybody I know that works at pro team started out in the minors at some point, and that's a great learning experience. So take that in for sure. Jennifer. Oh, yeah, here you go. Love my job with minor league baseball. It's a seasonal, but great experience and networking. Yeah. So think of it this way too. Minor league baseball, minor league anything. Not only are you going to get a well-rounded experience, we're going to get expected to do a lot of different things. So one day you might be working in the box office, you might be selling tickets, you might be working in the press box to help out with stats one night, you might be pulling the tarp, you might be mascot, media relations. You'll do a bit of everything, right? That's awesome. You're going to have great experience on your resume. The other thing is the relationships you build, these are all connected people. I mean, the owners and general managers of minor league baseball teams are connected to the parent teams and are connected to other minor league teams. And it's like, if you prove yourself in these grounds, there's a lot of upside. So really getting in there and kicking some butt, I think, is awesome. I'm a huge fan of minor league sports. I got experience with the LFL, and the owner owns all the teams, and the experience was great. They're always looking for help, but it is volunteer. I worked with the Bloss. Jamie, that's pretty cool. I have never heard of the Bloss. Where are they from? The Bloomington Bloss? Is that what it is? You're from Indiana, so I'm trying to guess whatever. Kevin said Salem Red Sox. Not exactly sure why, but I'm a fan. Bliss. Oh, see, when I go up the comments, there it is. It's Bliss. Makes more sense from the Bloss. Kevin, be glad. I recently used your unique story technique on my CV for a position in the Houston Dynamo. Should I send the same CV to the other staff member I meet through networking or change it? Okay, so what Kevin is referencing is that one of the things I talk about for people on their cover letter is to try to tell a story, not just repeat their resume. So you might give an experience of where you overcame a challenge in your job, or where you had a pressure moment and you really thrived. And so telling a story, I think, lures people in more about you. Like, rather than just, I see people all the time write a cover letter that's just putting their resume in paragraph form, like, then I went to this job, and then I went here, and then I did this. And it's like, boring. I'd throw those away. I'd get like rip off the top, toss that, and just have the resume. But if you can tell me a story that really gets me, that is a really cool way to share a cover letter and tell more about your personality and your ability to share your story and tell a little something about yourself. So Kevin, should you send that same CV to other staff members I meet through networking? Yeah, I think it's totally fine. I don't think anybody's expecting you to have 15 different stories you're going to put in your cover letter to send out to them. And chances are the person you sent it to originally, like it's an HR person, they may have escalated to hiring manager. It doesn't mean they escalated to everybody else that you're going to be having a panel interview with, or having an interview day with, or whatever it may be. So feel free to use that cover letter story again. If you feel good about it, if you feel like you nailed it, use it. I had one that I used all the time. I nailed it. Robert, I was wondering where you were. Sorry, I missed the first half hour. I saw your post. Was wondering if you would be changing the day or keeping it Thursdays. Oh, right. I was talking on our Work in Sports podcast page if I should change the time of the Facebook Lives from 7:30 on Thursdays. But I didn't get any great suggestions, so we're still here on Thursday nights. If you guys have any timing or day of the week changes you'd like to see, hey, I'd also love it if you told more friends about it. You know, it's a kind of cool session that we're doing here. We're going to try to do it every week on Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Other than that, I mean, it gets a little too late for me. Just kidding. But I like that time frame, and I'd love to get more people in here. So feel free to share it. If you're in school, share it with your classmates, tell your professor about it. It's a cool interactive experience, and I think a lot of people are getting stuff out of it. Okay. Kevin, you have to love the panel interviews. Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I actually liked them because it fits my personality. Like, I felt like I went in there as a challenge. Like, I'm going to own this room. By the time this is done, everyone in that room is going to love me. And that was always the way I framed my mind around it. And that worked for me. Like, everybody's different in how they handle themselves, how they get themselves pumped up and excited and ready for something. For me, it was this feeling I needed to get this place I needed to get myself into. Like, yeah, there's 8 of them and they're going to try to make me uncomfortable. Well, get this. I'm going to win them all over and they're going to love me by the end of this. And that challenge always really got me going. So I loved panel interviews. I want to become a general manager in MLB or NFL. I'm not sure why there's a question mark there, Robert. I mean, you should be an exclamation point. I want to become a general manager in Major League Baseball or NFL. What path should I take to obtain one? Okay, so general managers. I've watched this trend emerge. Now, general managers always used to be this grizzled scout that would be sitting in the stands watching games and knowing all these little insider tricks and would know how to identify talent. And that's all great. Still happens sometimes. But most general managers nowadays have a background in economics, business analysis. I mean, I'm telling you, I did this study of all the general managers in Major League Baseball, and almost 80% of the GMs hired in the last 10 years had a different background than you'd expect. And a lot of that is ability to crunch the numbers and run the business better, but at the same time, be able to analyze player data. So that is a really interesting way to go about it. Now, that said, you still have to have an eye for scouting. I do know our friends at Sports Management Worldwide have a scouting and GM course, so they kind of couple those things together. And what I like about their courses is that they're 8 weeks, they're online, they're pretty cool that way. But at the same time, what I like is that they bring in former GMs to teach the class. So that's like credibility personified to me. It's like, who's going to teach you how to be a GM? Well, a guy who was a GM before is pretty good at this. So I like those classes. That's something to look into. Jeff Barnes, thank you for the advice on LinkedIn connections. I was able to connect with personnel that I had a hard time getting their attention otherwise. Yeah. So for a previous Facebook Live, we talked about this process of connecting with people on LinkedIn and in social media and adding a note and personalizing things, but also you need to have an angle. And sometimes I'm providing that angle for you. Like if I've interviewed all these people on the Work in Sports podcast, well, you could technically go to Maylin Vu tomorrow on LinkedIn and say, hey, I heard your interview on the Work in Sports podcast, and I just wanted to say, great job. I'd love to connect here or something. That's your angle now. And she's probably going to be like, great, love to connect with you, and then you can start to build a network that way. So having that now remember, all these people that I've interviewed, you can leverage the relationship I've built with them to help you build a relationship. I think that's a pretty cool technique. Wait, I have to publish this one. Brian, you're awesome. Thank you. I do enjoy these sessions and I enjoy having all of you here. And like I said, please, tell more people about it. I'd like to get the numbers consistently growing and keep growing this group so we can have a really intense and fun dialogue and more people telling me I'm awesome. Hey, come on. I'm going to just keep pushing this one up there. Hey, look, there it is again. Okay. Jennifer, what are your key points on your LinkedIn profile? I noticed mine is being viewed and searched because of my job title rather than my companies that are relevant. Jennifer, here is my advice on LinkedIn. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they make their profile all inwardly focused. Me. This is me. This is me. This is me. What I love to see is people that try to make their bio or their little write-up be you focused. What am I going to do for your business? How am I going to affect positive change in your business? I'm a seasoned marketer who, whatever, I'm not going to do it off the top of my head. But if you can really turn that into a statement focused at how you can make a change at somebody else's business, I think that's highly effective. And then I also think in your, I see a lot of people that list their jobs that they've had in the time frame, and that's pretty much it. Really try to build that out. Give some resume style bullet points with metrics in there. If you're a social media coordinator, well, I worked for the minor league team for the Cleveland Indians and grew their Twitter followers by 24%. Those sort of things, those metrics. If you look back at one of our other Facebook Lives, I did a whole thing on metrics that you can put on your resume. So I'm not going to pull them all out right now because I'm not thinking that straight. But definitely metrics and bullet points and just different ways of putting in a picture and having any portfolio stuff. If you've done video work, if you've done whatever applies to the job you're trying to get, any articles you've written, any things you've done in that regard, make sure to put those front and center in there, and you get your profile noticed more. I will tell you the reason that you come up in searches a lot of times is because people look for location and years experience. If you look at the filter, do this. Look in LinkedIn on how you can do searches for other people and find them. So I can do a filter when I'm looking for people to interview for the podcast. I can set up certain filters and get a results. Well, if you look at what filters are available in there, know that recruiters and other people are using those same filters. So you can kind of look in there and say, oh, that's how people are finding me. I need to really bulk up that area because that's what they're looking for. So you can kind of take some ideas from that as well. Gary, Bill Guertine is great at sales training. Yes, he is. He was on the podcast as well. He's a good friend. I know Bill personally. Good guy. Really good at the sales stuff. Like I don't have the ability for it, which is funny. Most people think that I'm kind of a salesy kind of guy, which isn't an insult. It's great. And salespeople are awesome. I've never really felt that comfortable doing it though. So it's cool that Bill is a guy that just has it. Like he just has that knack, and it's really, really cool. Jamie back with the bliss. Yes. Bliss, we got it. Chicago. See, there's the answer to my question. I'm on delay here. They're in Chicago. Did not know that. Okay, let's see. Samantha. Thanks to the awesome advice through the podcast, Facebook Lives, I got 2 internships offered this week. Whoa! 2 internships internship offers this week. The info is always super helpful. Thank you so much. Well, Samantha, it is my pleasure and honor. I will tell you, like, I've worked in the sports industry for 20 years, and you're always looking for new ways to keep yourself motivated and fresh and reinvent. And, you know, I'm a little older than you guys. A lot of you probably. I'm just turned 44. So I'm always looking for new sparks and new ways of giving back and new things like that. And this is a lot of it. Like, I get fired up doing this. I love sharing the experience that I've had and been through, things that I've failed at, things that I've succeeded at. And I think that's telling it in a really honest and raw way and trying to give these actionable pieces of advice. A lot of the advice I give ends up being things that I wish I had done better, that I wish I had done when I was coming up in the industry. And so now I can look back and say, well, what advice would I give myself if I was 18, 19, 20 years old, or 25 or 30? And Kevin, 42, good. Nice to know I'm not the only old guy in here. So again, I pulled information and knowledge and try to share it with you in this forum because, I don't know, I love this stuff. I love being able to help and interact. So I'm glad that it's working. And the advice helped. I mean, 2 internship offers this week. That's awesome. I want to know how you choose which one. I want you to share that information with us. I just did that as mailing accepted. See, Gary, knocking it out of the park. Thanks, brother. See, it's not that hard. I need to go back. Hey, Becky, listen and connect on LinkedIn. But yes, Brian, you're awesome with this. Oh, thank you. I'm going to keep that one up there too. I'm just going to keep. Hi, yes, I'm still awesome. Hey, look at me, still awesome. But Robert, we're all attracted to sports at some point in life because we become a fan of a team or player. So where does Bryce Harper and Manny Machado sign? You know what? I'll tell you, as a Red Sox fan, during the World Series when Manny Machado came up, I had no worries because I think he's a fraud. So I would not give him the money. But that's just me. Bryce Harper, I'd pay him the money. Jennifer, thank you. I did hear the metrics live. Okay, good. Cool. All right, guys. Jennifer, I'm told it's wisdom at 39. Yes. All right. We are at 8:30. That goes fast. If there's any final questions, feel free to throw them in. We can do a couple more minutes here, but I will tell you that I'll go back a little bit to the beginning. If you are a student, we do have a really cool deal on workinsports.com. You can get 87% off the normal price, full access to 10,000 plus jobs and all these other cool features that we have. If you have a .edu address, you can sign up at the website I have below, which will give you 87% off. It's a 6-month membership for just $30, so $5 a month. We are the #1 job board for the sports industry. And I'm Brian Clapp. I'm the director of content for workinsports.com. If you are not subscribed to our podcast, I'm disappointed in you. Highly, highly disappointed in you. We are at episode 146, I believe. And we have had on everyone from Lee Steinberg, who is like the super agent to the stars, and Pat Mahomes' agent, for example. We've had on Maylin Vu, who's a talent acquisition manager for the Cleveland Indians, assistant director of talent acquisition, sorry. We've had on incredible, incredible guests. I have Lee DeLeon coming on, who's the associate athletic director for Purdue in a couple weeks. Melanie Newman, who's a broadcaster, a female broadcaster for Melanie kind of gave away that she was a female broadcaster. But the reason I bring that up is because she's one of only 5 women in minor league baseball, in professional baseball, doing play-by-play. Dude, Kevin, Yankees, whatever. You get me off track here. But then also after Melanie, I just interviewed Tiara Brown, who's the manager of corporate social responsibility for the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, we're getting these incredible guests and they're sharing incredible information. Like, I wish I had this stuff when I was coming up. Robert, how do I listen to the podcast? Can I listen for free? Yes, sir, you can. The podcast is 100% free. Anyway, Jamie, you're a boiler. Okay, so podcast. If you have a smartphone, if you have an Android phone, there's Google Play, there's any kind of podcatcher like Overcast or There's an Android Google podcast app now. If you have a iPhone, there's the Apple Podcast app. We're in there. You just go into those any of those apps, Spotify. Go to those apps, search for the Work and Sports Podcast. We have 146 episodes. There's a lot of stuff. So if you're commuting, or you're going for a run, or you're walking your dog, or you're mowing the grass, or snowblowing, great time to listen. And you can watch and listen many times. And we do these podcasts. We do these Facebook Lives. I'm trying to do them every Thursday. So I'm tired at the end of these hours, though. It's a good time. I heard somebody the other day that was talking about, I think they do a YouTube marketing live session. And they said it's this guy and his brother. And they go for 7 hours. 7 hours. And come on. Why? Why do you go for 7 hours? Like, I do an hour and I'm like, whew, pretty good. Glad I got through that. So anyway, I don't think you guys would have that many questions, and I don't think I could come up with that many answers for 7 hours every week. So let's wrap it up at 8:30. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will post this on our Facebook page, on our Work and Sports Podcast group, which all of you should join as well. Just go to the Work and Sports Podcast in Facebook. There's a couple quick questions just so I know that you're an actual human, and then I let you into the group. And there's 1,000+ people in there that are networking and sharing and giving each other advice, and it's really cool. And then this will also be on our blog, workandsports.com/blog, which has tons of other content on there. And basically, we're busy. And there's a YouTube channel, and there's just about everything you could ever want. So come up with your questions for next week. I'll come up with another cool theme. We'll have this conversation again. And thank you again, everybody, for being here. I'm Brian Clapp, and I am done. Now.